Let's bring in NBC investigations reporter, my friend Tom Winter, and New York Times investigative reporter, Steve Eder. Tom, to you first. Revelations in these court documents about Ghislaine Maxwell, what did they confirm that we didn't know already? Because look at that package right there. This is the daughter of a swindler and a con man. When her father, Robert Maxwell, died mysteriously, found naked off of his yacht, he owed over 40 banks $4 billion. How exactly did Ghislaine Maxwell go from that to rolling with some of the most powerful people in the world, living life as a socialite, and now no one knows where she is? How can she even afford to live off the grid? I can't.
I mean, if you think that Jeffrey Epstein's finances are complicated, getting into Ghislaine Maxwell's finances and getting into just the exact question that you asked, how was she able to afford to do this? How was she able to afford to live in this world? I mean, we know from some of the documents that we've been able to see that Jeffrey Epstein apparently bought her a helicopter and that she flew that helicopter. And so when you look at this, you have to ask the question, how did she continue to maintain this lifestyle? How much of that and how much of those means came from Jeffrey Epstein, and how much of it was money that she may have had that could have been separate from her father? The whole thing is a huge mystery. It's a mystery how she even gets into Jeffrey Epstein's world. It's a mystery how she stays in this world. I mean, she had a front row seat at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There's a picture of that. And so the question is, how did she kind of stay in this mix? How did she travel in these circles? And where do things go next from her? And
why don't we know where she is? Do authorities know and they just haven't told us?
It's not a question I think that they would necessarily divulge to us, even if they knew, because they may not want to know where she is. But nobody has seen her or heard from her in a long time. I mean, we have tried to reach out to her attorneys on numerous occasions. Look, whenever we do this story and we talk about somebody specifically in their actions, it is our policy here, and we certainly always try to reach out to that person in that party, because that's the right thing to do. We want to have the opportunity. I mean, if Ghislaine Maxwell's representatives are listening, you know our numbers, you know we've been trying to reach you. We would like the opportunity to speak with you about some of these revelations in those court documents that you referenced on Friday.
Steve, let's talk about his finances. Now that he's dead, all that you and your team and our team have been looking into, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell's money, her father's money, where Epstein got his money, his ties to Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, where do those investigations go? Do they die away with him?
I think it all continues. I mean, there's a lot to look at here. There's money moving, left and right, transactions that date back quite a many years. And we're not just talking about a few dollars. These are many millions of dollars moving around. And, the banks are certainly, looking at their own records, and other parties, other parts of this thing. There's a lot to look at here as it relates to the money flows.
It was just reported moments ago, Les Wexner, the founder of limited company, that's L Brands, who, by your reporting, Les Wexner was the main, possibly only source for Jeffrey Epstein to get as wealthy as he did. Wexner giving him power of attorney, which was unheard of over his billion-dollar fortune. Now it's being reported that Wexner is now, in the last few months, working with authorities. Why does that make sense? If you're Les Wexner or anyone, and Epstein stole tens of millions of dollars from you over a decade ago, why wouldn't you have worked with authorities then?
So, I mean, just last week, Mr. Wexner revealed that, he had been, a victim of a different kind of financial victim of Mr. Epstein, who had, had this affiliation with him for more than 15 years, that it was this vast sums that had misappropriated. And so as that raises questions. I mean, why weren't authorities called in back in 2007, at the time that was discovered?
Has Wexner given an answer to that? If I walked into a Victoria's Secret right now and stole a bra, I would get arrested. Why wouldn't Wexner have called authorities when Epstein steals $50 million from him at least?
Yeah, and that hasn't been, there hasn't been a clear answer given on that front. I mean, what we understand is that there was some amount of money, maybe roughly $100 million, that has been recouped back at that time as part of this. But no, there hasn't been a, kind of a full airing of that aspect of things.
Will there be, Tom, a legal reason to get these answers from the likes of Wexner or Leon Black from Apollo or Glenn Dubin of Highbridge? Obviously, reporters are interested, but Les Wexner doesn't have to take our call. Are there still going to be those demands, those inquiries, possibly subpoenas from the government now that Epstein's dead?
Well, I think so. I mean, look, you can look at it in two different ways. One is from a civil standpoint for the victims when we talk about them getting justice. Will they be able to go after some of these figures that may have funded Epstein? And if that money, in any money that went to Epstein to fund this conspiracy that he was being charged with, that could be something that not only from a civil side these victims would be interested in, that's something that the prosecutors could also be interested in. So they're going to want to know exactly what money came in and where it went out to, and that's something that they're going to keep an eye on. Look, there's something that they've already kept an eye on. I mean, for the last 5 years, they have his banking records, at least at this point. They've already disclosed that in public filings. So for the past 5 years...
Could it be easier to get some of this information now that he's dead? I mean, if I'm Epstein's lawyers, I'm no longer getting paid by him as of Saturday. Why wouldn't I?
Well, it depends on how his estate was going to be managed, because some of those attorneys may also be managing his estate. And so from that standpoint, the billables keep going because they're managing the estate. And on top of that, they may want to bring suit against MCC for negligence. I mean, we're reporting here that and I think Danny Savalas...
Wait, Epstein's attorneys?
It is conceivable that the estate would sue MCC because and Danny Savalas brought up a great point before, some of the statements that the Attorney General has made about, irregularities at this facility. I mean, it's kind of an admission that they may not have been.
But hold
on,
irregularities that allowed him to have the opportunity to kill himself?
I'm just saying that the possibility does exist, and it's a possibility that we have to consider. So I don't think that the idea that this is kind of all buttoned up by the end of the week as far as his finances go, as far as how, how this is all going to be executed in his estate. This is going to be a complicated thing that we're definitely going to be keeping track of, and that his attorneys are going to be dealing with probably for a long period of time. And the civil attorneys are definitely going to have to look at this because they want to keep going with cases, and they want the ability to get financial justice from Jeffrey Epstein. So there's going to have to be representation.
Yeah, but hold on, and I know we're out of time, but Steve, if I'm Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan, and I've been watching the clock saying this guy's going to have a trial date a year from now, I'm going to be called to testify, aren't all of those parties breathing a sigh of relief because that's no longer happening?
I mean, I think the prosecutors, the authorities are giving the sense that this continues. So, I don't know that I think any sigh of relief might be a little premature.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.